potential barriers to applying science, technology, and innovation in Africa and ways to overcome them. I have no doubt that this able assembly of leaders and experts, as well as youth from various walks of life, will provide innovative solutions and alternative approaches to scale up actions and enable STI to empower people to build an inclusive and equal society. I wish you all fruitful deliberations. We look forward to hear the ideas. Most importantly, we look forward to the action of implementing them. Thank you very much.
You see, collaboration pays. Okay, thank you very much, Jean-Paul. Merci, Jean-Paul, for this overview of the objectives of the forum. I mean, why it has been created and how, with all the partnership that is being built, the forum will be conducted during this session and for the future. I mean, we have heard us in all our introductory remarks mention that all of this has one goal: to prepare a brighter future, of course, to reach 2030 successfully, but at the same time to be able to sustain the process and go beyond 2030. And in this context, I think that we need to think for ourselves, but we need to think about how we can empower and involve the youth in the process. Of course, we have boot camps, and we have seen that when they are given an opportunity, the youth can express themselves in a very convincing way. So it is my pleasure to invite now His Excellency Mukudzeishe, and I hope that the name is correctly pronounced, Child President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, for his message.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. The Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology, Honorable Professor Amon Murwira, and your Deputy Minister here present. The Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare, Honorable Professor Paul Mavima. UNESCO Regional Director and Representative Professor Hubert Gizen. Director of Technology, Climate Change and Natural Resource Management at UNECA, Mr. Jean-Paul Adam. Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology, Professor F. Tagwira, and other permanent secretaries of various governmental departments here present. The Mayor of the Victoria Falls Municipality, His Worship Somvelo Dlamini in absentia. Senior government officials from various African states, members of the Diplomatic Corps. The Honorable Junior Vice President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Mr. Chakunda Shonai. The Junior Minister of ICT and Courier Services, Ms. Vanessa Chivisha, here present, and other members of the Zimbabwe Junior Cabinet. Invited guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Just wow. It always leaves me in utter awe and amazement to see how much the world is interested in hearing what the youth have to say about global challenges and sustainable development. In a world in which the youth are suppressed, subjugated, oppressed, and sidelined in the process of policymaking and international development, a world in which advocates like Greta Thunberg, after spearheading advocacy attempts, are bombarded with insults from people around the world, a world in which people who speak out for their rights are silenced with a single slap and reduced to sobbing messes as they watch their rights get aggressively stripped away. A world in which, in the midst of all this global conflict, children are put at the center of it, serving as child soldiers, as informants, slaves, and victims of the horrors and atrocities perpetuated by the very adults who so claim to have a legal and moral obligation to preserve their rights. The world is developing at an alarming rate. That was the premise on which this forum was initiated, and over the last 2 days, I have learned more than I ever thought I could through the Science, Technology and Innovation Youth Bootcamp. It gave me absolute pleasure to interact with my peers, understand their various perspectives on life, and hear about the exciting work they have been doing in science and technology to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. Better still was the opportunity to be put in a group with a diverse pool of ladies and gentlemen and perform a number of particularly interesting tasks, from working with 3D printers to assembling robots and developing solutions to various global challenges. My utmost thanks go to the organizers of this conference, and it is my wish that this platform is sustained for many more years to come. Amongst most of the pressing issues mentioned were those of the fourth industrial revolution and the ethical issues surrounding it, as well as the importance of adaptability in this ever-evolving world. Of particular interest to me, however, were discussions on gender, gender bias, and gender equality, and the need for more women to take up space, occupy positions in STEM, and take over the world. A few months ago in Bulawayo, we commemorated the International Day of the Girl Child by taking tours around various female-run departments around the city, including meeting a female engineer working for Econet. I've also been astounded by the brilliant takeoffs and landings that I've seen female captains of planes making in the various flights that I've taken to this venue. And without going too far, we have in our midst the Junior Minister of ICT and Courier Services, Ms. Vanessa Chivise, who is making moves in her capacity, running various female empowerment programs and inspiring young women around the nation to take up space, certainly in STEM, but even in commercials and the arts. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations has also been doing amazing things, taking up space and inspiring women out there, changing lives at the head of an organization responsible for preserving international peace and security. Girls can too. Women have the power to change the world, and it is high time that we realize that. For so long, institutions have been biased towards the boy child, and it is institutions such as the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament that have been contributing towards the elimination of such unfair practices through advocacy and activism. In her book, Dear Ijawele, A Feminist Manifesto and 15 Suggestions, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie had the following to say: if we do not place the straitjacket of gender roles on young children, we give them space to reach their full potential. Please see her as an individual, not as a girl who should be seen in a certain way. See her weaknesses and her strengths in an individual way. Do not measure her on the scale of what a girl should be. Measure her on being the best version of herself. However, even with all these important conferences, we are not yet on course to the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2030. In our desire to leave no one behind, we have left many minority communities struggling to catch up, from racial and ethnic minorities to people in conflict-stricken countries. It is important that we accept and embrace the socio-economic and political opportunities that science and technology bring to the world. It is only through engaging the various available options that we can truly make an impact. And with the right technology and the right partnerships, we can legitimately change the world. It must also be noted that for so long, we children have long struggled to gain adequate space in international platforms to advocate for reforms. The titular character of William Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth says in the opening soliloquy of the 7th scene of the first act, bloody instructions which being taught return to plague the inventor. The truth is, the world will regret not having given us a place to get involved now. And as Greta Thunberg said in her speech to world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly, we will never forgive a world that fails to give us opportunities. We will not forgive any generation that fails to include us in sustainable development. And when we take over in 10, 20, 30 years' time, we will be furious. We'll be furious because we have always been ready to help, and yet we have received very few to no platforms. I must, however, applaud the efforts by the United Nations to include and incorporate the youth in the resolution of global challenges. Amongst us today is Nkoslat Nkala, who just last year was in Spain advocating passionately for climate change and reforms in international law regarding climate change. Further thanks must go to the government of Zimbabwe for availing opportunities such as the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament that are grooming future leaders. In the audience right now is the Honorable Junior Vice President, who is perhaps the most passionate advocate I've ever met, and together with my cabinet has made my term a very successful and game-changing one. We hope such opportunities will continue to be availed. On behalf of the Zimbabwe Junior Parliament, I must once again extend my heartfelt appreciation to the organizers for this excellent event. To me, it is a sign of the commitment of the international community to harnessing the untapped potential that lies in young people. It is a sign of the commitment of world leaders towards changing existing perceptions towards the youth. The world was never ready for what the youth have in store. And such platforms provide beautiful opportunities for the youth to network, find opportunities, and explore. We're a generation of game changers, a generation of people who are predisposed to breaking and revolutionizing the rules of the game. And my thanks go to UNESCO, UNECA, the United Nations as a parental body, and the government of Zimbabwe, in particular the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, the Ministry of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare, the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Arts and Recreation, and many other relevant government departments. Minister Murira, thank you. Thank you for your consistent efforts towards achieving access to quality education and tertiary education, as well as access to science, technology, and innovation. Minister Mavima, we know your heart will always be with the young. We're very happy about the work you have been doing, and we know that even in your new ministry, you will continue to keep the interests of the youth in mind. UNESCO, UNECA, UNICEF. History will always remember your deeds. History will celebrate, applaud, and revere you for your actions towards catalyzing development. My fellow young people, you are all superstars. You are game changers, world movers, and world forsakers. Over the past few days, I have seen that we have this in the bag. When we take over the world in a few years' time, we have an unlimited database of ideas to build on. I leave you with the words of the late Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations, who asks the following in the preface to his book, Interventions: A Life in War and Peace. What do we stand for as a global community? What are the responsibilities for our common fate in a world that is simultaneously coming together and falling apart? And how do we exercise these responsibilities? How will we strike the balance between growth and development, equality and opportunity, human rights and human security? I am ready to change the world. I am ready to be a game changer. We, the young people, are ready, and we hope you are too, because the youth are taking over. Thank you.
A second round of applause, please. Thank you very much. You started your speech saying wow, and it is exactly what I want to say actually after listening to you. Wow. And I'm delighted and reassured that the next generation is really committed and passionate about delivering, and delivering in a very, very positive manner. So thank you very much. Thank you to Africa's youth for being present and ready and willing to prepare the future and to meet the SDGs. So, I mean, you have all thanked UNESCO and ECA and other UN organizations for supporting and organizing the STI Forum, but I mean, our role would be vain if we do not have committed and responsive governments with whom we can work. And I was really delighted last year when Zimbabwe offered to host the forum and to host the STI. So it is now my pleasure to introduce and give the floor to His Excellency Professor Amon